I am sitting in a hotel room right now, staring at my phone as it lights up for the 20th time in the last hour. I have 23 unread texts from my wife, Milena, and 5 missed calls from her mother. My lock screen is just a wall of frantic paragraphs and angry emojis. But honestly, looking out this window at the city skyline, sipping a drink I paid for myself, I have never felt more at peace. If you told me yesterday that I'd be spending our 3rd wedding anniversary in a Marriott instead of celebrating, I would have called you crazy. But after what happened tonight, there is absolutely no turning back. To understand how I got here, you have to understand the ridiculous financial dynamic of my marriage. Milena comes from serious, old money wealth. Her family is upper class, old guard European, but they've lived in an affluent American enclave for decades. Her dad, Richard, is a high-level corporate executive who inherited millions and built a few more on top of it. He is the kind of guy who judges a person's worth entirely by the brand of their watch and the zip code of their summer home. If you don't belong to his country club, you practically don't exist. Now, for a reality check, I am not broke. Not even close. I come from a solid, hard-working middle-class background, and I put myself through school to become a software engineering project manager. I make a very comfortable low 6 figures. For a guy in his late 20s, I'm doing incredibly well. I bought a nice townhouse, I drive a reliable car, and I have a healthy retirement fund. But in Richard's eyes, if you aren't clearing 7 figures annually, you're a peasant. To him, my hard work is just cute, and my salary is pocket change. Milena and I met during our senior year in college. Back then, she was a breath of fresh air. She constantly complained about her family's superficial lifestyle and told me she loved how grounded and genuine I was. She swore she wanted a normal, authentic life away from her parents' toxic high society drama. I believed her. I thought I had found an independent woman who loved me for who I was. We got married 3 years ago, and for the first 2 years, things were amazing. But over the last year, something shifted. Milena started reconnecting with her old childhood friends, the trust fund crowd. Slowly, her tone began to change. The red flags started popping up, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. She started making these little passive-aggressive comments about my life. She'd look at my clean, well-maintained sedan and ask when I was going to upgrade to a proper vehicle. She'd make snide remarks about my wardrobe, or hint that I lacked ambition because I didn't want to work 90-hour weeks to become a corporate VP. I brushed it off, thinking she was just stressed or influenced by her friends, but the seed of doubt was definitely planted. That brings us to our 3rd year anniversary, which was tonight. I wanted to do something special, so weeks ago, I booked a table at a beautiful, upscale local bistro. It's a place with incredible reviews, meaningful atmosphere, and for any normal couple, it would be considered an expensive, high-end date. I was really looking forward to it. Then came the hijack. 2 days ago, Milena found out where we were going and scoffed. She literally called the bistro quaint but cheap. Without even asking me, she canceled my reservation. She took it upon herself to book a table at an insanely exclusive, ultra-expensive Michelin star restaurant downtown, where you usually have to wait months for a seat. To make matters worse, she casually dropped a bombshell. Oh, by the way, I invited my parents. Dad said he wanted to toast to our milestone. I was furious and incredibly hurt. This was supposed to be our night. But she pouted, played the victim, and said she just wanted her family to be a part of our happiness. To keep the peace and avoid a massive fight right before our anniversary, I reluctantly agreed to go. The moment we arrived at the restaurant tonight, I knew I had made a massive mistake. Richard and his wife were already seated, sipping vintage wine. Richard looked me up and down, glaring at my tailored suit as if I were wearing rags, eyeing me like I was dirt on the bottom of his custom Italian loafers. Milena's mother gave me a nod so icy it could freeze water. The tension at the table was so thick you could cut it with a knife before we even ordered appetizers. I sat down next to my wife, feeling like an outsider at my own anniversary dinner, completely unaware of the trap that had been set for me. The dinner started, and within minutes, Richard began orchestrating his usual psychological warfare. He didn't even wait for the appetizers to arrive before taking his first jab at my career. He leaned back, swirled his incredibly expensive whiskey, and looked at me with a smirk. "So," he started, his voice dripping with condescension, "have you finally looked into a real job yet? Or are you still content coasting on that modest little salary of yours? My jaw tightened, but I forced myself to take a deep breath. I glanced at Milena, hoping she'd intercept, but she was busy adjusting her diamond bracelet. I tried to laugh it off, keeping my tone casual. Project management in tech keeps me pretty busy, Richard. The industry is booming, I replied, quickly pivoting to look at the menu. But let's look at the options here. The seafood selection looks incredible tonight. Richard just let out a dismissive grunt, and for the next hour, the jabs kept coming. Every topic of conversation was turned into an opportunity to remind me that I didn't belong in their tax bracket. By the time the dinner ended, the atmosphere was suffocating. Richard had ordered multiple bottles of high-end vintage wine without a single care for the price. When the waiter finally dropped the bill on the table, it was inside a sleek leather presenter. I didn't even have to open it to know it was massive, thousands of dollars. Even though Milena had hijacked the night and invited her parents without my consent, it was still technically our anniversary. I wanted to hold my head high. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my premium credit card, and reached across the table to place it on top of the bill. Before my card could even touch the leather presenter, Richard slammed his hand down, stopping me. He chuckled loudly, a booming, arrogant sound that caused a few people at neighboring tables to turn and look. "Put your toy card away, son," Richard said, making sure his voice carried across the dining room. "We all know you can't actually afford this. I don't even know why Milena keeps you around, except to play charity case. You've been digging into our family's aura since day one, trying to live a life you didn't earn." The insult was incredibly sharp, meant to completely emasculate me in public. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I immediately looked at Milena. This was the moment. In the past, she would have slammed her hand on the table and demanded her father apologize to me. I waited for her to defend her husband. Instead, Milena slowly picked up her wine glass, took a delicate sip, and let out a soft, condescending laugh. "Dad, stop, you're embarrassing him," she said, giggling. But then she turned her eyes to me, and the warmth was completely gone from them. "But I mean, he's not totally wrong, babe. You do love the perks of my lifestyle. You have to admit, you wouldn't be eating at a place like this if it weren't for my family." Right then, something snapped inside my head. But it wasn't an explosion of anger. It was a cold, absolute silence. In an instant, the remaining love I had for this woman evaporated. The realization hit me with total clarity. My wife did not respect me. She didn't view me as her partner. She viewed me exactly the way her toxic, elitist family did, as a lower-class pet they allowed to sit at their table. I didn't yell. I didn't cause a scene. A profound, unshakable calmness washed over me. What Milena and her family didn't know was that I am not an idiot. I had seen the writing on the wall for months. Things had been deteriorating, and a month ago, I chanced upon some suspicious texts on Milena's iPad. It was a group chat between her and her mother, actively plotting how to pressure me into signing a lopsided prenup amendment that would strip away my rights to our shared marital property while protecting her future inheritance from a divorce she was clearly already framing. The moment I saw those texts, I quietly went to top-tier legal counsel. I had an ironclad set of divorce papers drawn up weeks ago. I kept them tucked inside the inner lining of my laptop briefcase and transferred them to my suit jacket pocket tonight, telling myself it was just a safety net. Tonight was the final test, and Milena had just failed it miserably. I looked at my wife and smiled. It wasn't a fake smile. It was the genuine smile of a man who had just been handed his freedom. "You're right, Milena," I said softly. "I completely agree." I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket. Instead of pulling out a different credit card, I pulled out a sleek, heavy manila envelope. I slid it across the table, right over the unpaid, multi-thousand-dollar bill, landing it directly in front of my wife. Milena blinked, looking down at the envelope in confusion. A small, materialistic smirk formed on her lips. "What's this? A vacation voucher? Are we going to Paris?" "Open it," I said calmly. She broke the seal and pulled out the documents. I watched the color literally drain from her face in real time. Her smirk vanished, her eyes widening in sheer horror as they locked onto the bold lettering at the top of the first page. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." Richard frowned, leaning forward. "What is that? What did you put on the table?" I didn't answer him. I calmly stood up from my chair, smoothed down the front of my shirt, and buttoned my suit jacket. I stood at my full height, looking Richard dead in his arrogant eyes. "You can pay for the dinner, Richard," I said, my voice steady, clear, and perfectly audible to the tables around us. "Since I'm just a gold digger, I wouldn't want to waste your precious, hard-earned money on my meal. Milena, my lawyer will be contacting yours first thing in the morning. Have a great night, everyone." Milena erupted. "Wait. What? Are you insane?" she screeched, her high society composure shattering instantly as she tried to stand up, knocking her wine glass over in the process. "You can't do this. Get back here." I didn't look back. I turned around and walked out of the restaurant in slow motion, feeling the eyes of every patron and waiter on my back. The heavy glass doors closed behind me, cutting off the sound of her frantic shouting. I stepped out onto the cool city street, immediately pulled out my phone, and ordered an Uber. While waiting, I went into my settings and temporarily blocked Milena, her mother, and her father. When the car arrived, I rode in total silence to a high-end luxury hotel downtown, booked a beautiful room using my own hard-earned money, and finally took a deep breath. When I woke up the next morning in my hotel room, the sun was streaming through the curtains, and for the first time in months, the heavy knot in my chest was completely gone. I made a cup of coffee, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened my phone settings to unblock Milena and her family just to see the inevitable damage. Instantly, my phone went into absolute meltdown. It was a digital explosion of notifications. Dozens of texts flooded my screen, completely alternating in tone every hour. 1 minute it was a furious, caps lock rant. "How dare you embarrass me in front of my parents? You are an immature child. Come home right now and apologize." The next minute, the panic would set in, and the text would flip to desperate begging. "Babe, please answer me. It was just a joke. We were just teasing you. I love you so much. Please don't do this over a stupid dinner." Then came the text blast from Richard. He didn't care about the marriage. He cared about his bruised ego. He sent a long, intimidating paragraph filled with legal jargon, threatening to hire the most expensive attorneys in the state to financially ruin me in divorce court. He claimed they would take everything I owned. I didn't even bother typing out a response. Instead, I opened my files, took a single screenshot of the ironclad, notarized prenuptial agreement we both signed before our wedding, and texted it back to him. The prenup completely protected my assets, stated neither party was entitled to alimony, and ensured she got nothing from me, while I wanted absolutely nothing from her. Richard never texted me again. With the legal threats silenced, Milena's true motivation for panicking finally became crystal clear. The reality was that her dad's old money wealth came with massive, suffocating strings attached. Richard monitored her trust fund strictly and hated seeing her spend his money on day-to-day luxuries. Because of that, Milena had been relying heavily on my steady, liquid six-figure income to fund her lifestyle behind her dad's back. My salary paid the rent, the bills, and the upscale vacations, allowing her to keep up appearances. Without me, her financial freedom was gone. She would have to go back to begging her controlling father for a monthly allowance. A few days later, the fallout spread to our social circles. I posted a vague but clear update to our close friends letting them know we were separating, and when the mutual friends called to ask what happened, I told them the absolute truth about the anniversary dinner. To my surprise, the truth traveled fast. Even Milena's high society friends started distancing themselves from her. In their world, being publicly trashy and cruel to your spouse at a high-end establishment was a massive social taboo. She had completely humiliated herself. The final confrontation happened a week later. I was sitting at a quiet corner table in a coffee shop near my office when Milena tracked me down. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. The pristine, glamorous woman from the restaurant was gone. She was a total mess. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes, and her hair tied back in a rushed ponytail. She sat down across from me, tears immediately streaming down her face. She reached across the table, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled it away. "Please, just listen to me," she sobbed. "I only laughed at dinner to appease my father. You know how he is. If I don't agree with him, he threatens to cut off my trust fund." I had to play along. It didn't mean anything. I looked at her, and it was a strange feeling. I didn't feel anger, and I didn't feel hatred. I just felt a profound, cold closure. The love was entirely gone. "That's exactly the problem, Milena," I said, my voice completely flat. You valued your dad's money more than your husband's dignity. If your lifestyle costs that much, go live with him. I stood up, left my coffee on the table, and walked away from her for the very last time. Today, the divorce is officially finalized. Thanks to the prenup, the process was quick and clean. I kept our townhouse, and she had to pack her bags and move back into her parents' mansion. I've been channeling all my new energy into my career, hitting the gym 5 days a week, and honestly just enjoying the absolute quiet of my own space. So, I'll leave you guys with one final thought. Never let anyone make you feel small just because they happen to have a larger bank account. Your self-respect is worth more than any inheritance or trust fund on the planet. Am I the asshole for handing her divorce papers at our anniversary dinner? Maybe. But do I regret it? Not for a single second.